Last weekend saw the return of OLL games for OLL 23 video games convention at the Norfolk Showground just outside Norwich, and it was an absolutely incredible weekend. And if you want to relive the weekend, or if you missed out and want to see what you missed, join me for today's video, because trust me, it was an incredible weekend.
Kick us! Building the games room! Road trips! Live game hunting!
Hello again folks, and welcome back to this very special video, as this time we are at OLL 23 Video Games Convention, the biggest gaming event in East Anglia. It was an absolutely incredible weekend, and I'm going to try and capture it. So if you missed out, or if you want to relive the memories of what was an incredible weekend, stay tuned. This is going to be a great video. And here we go then folks, OLL 23 Video Games Convention right here in the fine city of Norwich. And trust me, there was so much to see and so much to do over the weekends. And one of the first things that caught my eye was this literal wall of CRT TVs. This is a thing of absolute beauty, and just imagine having this in your games room. I think this is peak retro right here. You could sit down on the floor like the good old days and play some retro games the way they're intended to be played. One of the main attractions of the weekend was the stage shows, which included content creators, game developers and fellow YouTubers such as Do You Know Gaming, who announced for the first time ever they are actually making a card game based on video game knowledge. And trust me, they asked some of the easy, normal and hard questions to the audience who are watching, and trust me, if you think you know video games, this game will definitely test your video game knowledge. One of my personal highlights the entire weekend was the Retro Games Championship. In this battle to the death, loads of YouTubers were pitted against each other in some of the biggest retro games of all time. And trust me, everyone was super duper competitive, and it's no surprise. There was an amazing selection of YouTubers here, including Retro Games Revival, The Games Mistress, The Gebs24 and even John Riggs. It was literally an all-star cast in this Retro Games Championship, and there was only one person who could lay down the epic challenges.
Welcome to OLL's Retro Gaming Championship. We have contestants of varying degrees of internet notoriety and fashion success / failure, ready to be pitted across a selection of classic titles.
So Dominic Diamond had laid down these epic retro game challenges, and they included such games such as Pilot Wings on the SNES, remember SNES with a Z on the end, which saw one of the biggest upsets as John Riggs actually failed his landing and landed in the sea, much to the shock of the Retro Gaming Revival. One of the closest games of Pac-Man I have ever seen as well. Trust me, I did not think all of these YouTubers would be so competitive, but one of the funniest parts of the entire Retro Game Championship for myself was when it came down to Sonic. I understand that people get stage fright, but I think this is one of the unluckiest runs I've ever seen on Sonic. They were going to see how far he could get in 5 minutes, but the amount of deaths on the very first level of Green Hill Zone, I have never seen either such bad luck, or as I said, just a case of stage fright, but it was very funny to see.
Each team has 5 minutes to rack up as many fares as possible and collect the most money by picking up unsuspecting passengers and then driving like James Dean to their destination. Google it, kids. Take shortcuts, go off-road, whatever it takes to make it there as fast as you can. Watch out for coloured fares, okay? Red ones are short and cheap, yellow ones offer higher rewards for completing longer journeys for the more confident panted player. Good luck.
I think of all the retro gaming challenges, Crazy Taxi was by far my favourite. And I think this needs to make a comeback as an esport. I did not expect a 1v1 Crazy Taxi match to be this close and this intense. Definitely, this could be the next big esport.
I have just been told, all right, in order to all of you, these are seeded due to lifetime sales ranking.
Early on the Sunday morning, and it was time for a war, a console war. The same panel was there to decide what was in fact the greatest console of all time, from a selection of some of the greatest consoles of all time. And spoiler alert, it was, in the end of the day, the Dreamcast that came out on top with the Sega Mega Drive as the runner-up. But I'm sure this one is going to cause a lot of discussion, so let me know what you think is the greatest console of all time in the comments down below. One of my other highlights of the Sunday was the games challenges, where they were essentially pitting teams of players against each other in some of the greatest arcade challenges. Now this was done using a website called AntStream, where you can go online and stream some of the absolute greatest arcade games of all time, all for free, and you can go on there and compete to have the highest score. This was really cool, worked really well. I think you can download this on a lot of app stores, and it was super cool. And it wasn't just like simple games on here, they also had some really good indie games such as this game Flee, which looks infuriatingly hard. I thought at first, this doesn't look too hard, but the problem is the Flea never stops jumping. This is the thing with some of these retro games, they are super hard, but this is one of those cool kind of modern day retro games, so definitely go check out Flea and try and hit that highest score. Of course, it wasn't just video games, there was also board games, and I never knew how much I needed this Star Wars Rebellion board game until now. This looks super cool. It has some of the best miniatures I've seen on any board game. It may be quite an expensive board game, but it's definitely one I'll be looking for in the future. And something I never thought I'd be looking for in the future is one of these quarter-size arcades. But this Turtles in Time mini arcade is absolutely a thing of beauty. This is the thing, some of these bigger arcade units are super hard to fit in the games room, but when you can get one of these quarter-size ones and just have it on the counter to play, it works perfectly. And this is the biggest surprise about this miniature arcade machine. It works perfectly. Like, I am not a small guy by any stretch of the imagination, and this works really well. And one of my favourite things about it is that the start button is the button where you would have to put a coin in normally to play this in the arcade. I cannot get over how much I fell in love with this thing like instantaneously. I'm not even sure where these are up for pre-order at the moment, but these were just absolutely fantastic. And the thing was, like, these are the kind of things you think they'd look a bit tacky, but I think they look super cool. It's just even the fact the marquee is lit up. But the hardest decision is whether I would go for this one or the Classics Turtles arcade one. It would be so difficult to decide between the two of these, but I think in the future I'm going to have to get at least one of these. It's just surprising how well these play, but I think the biggest surprise is actually the originals Turtles arcade game, which I think played slightly better than Turtles in Time. Like, I'm not going to blaspheme against Turtles in Time. It is undoubtedly one of the greatest arcade games of all time, and quite possibly the greatest Turtles game of all time. But when it comes to these quarter-size arcades, I think it's this original TMNT arcade game that just pips it to the post. Absolutely in love with these things. Speaking of playing video games, one of the best things about OLL 23 was the fact there were tons of retro consoles and modern consoles set up that you could play through. And I think it's just ironic that me and my wife, one of the first consoles we sat down to play was the NES and the absolute classic that is Duck Hunt, just because we are both suckers for a light gun game. And if you did not know, this is actually one of the lesser known facts about Duck Hunt on the NES. This is in fact a multiplayer game. That's right, if you put a second controller into the second port, the other player can control the direction of the ducks and essentially just annoy the other player. I don't know what it is about video game conventions, but there's nothing better than sitting down with friends, family or partners and just playing some retro games. I was smashing out some Sonic and Knuckles, and my wife was rediscovering how hard the original Rayman game was on the PS1. Like, seriously, I forgot how difficult this game was. It has an absolutely brutal difficulty, but I don't know if it's just me. I was never very good at platform games, but this one was definitely nails. There was also a selection of modern retro games, such as this game, Yeah Yeah Beavis, by Wave Studios and none other than John Riggs. This was a super cool game made for the Dreamcast. That's right, companies are still making brand new games for the Sega Dreamcast in 2023. This game was a real flashback to some of the absolute classic games on the original NES. It was super simple but super addictive. It's really cool to see companies and even YouTube celebrities making these kind of modern retro games. This one was super cool, and it amazes me now that there's still support for the Sega Dreamcast. trust me, this is not the last time we'll be talking about the Sega Dreamcast in today's video. This was another absolutely fantastic new game for the Sega Dreamcast from Wave Studios called Shadow Ninja, and this game was super cool. It was like a kind of mix between Streets of Rage and Shinobi with just, yeah, it played absolutely fantastically. The graphics are amazing. I think like it's incredible that people are getting like better graphics now from the Dreamcast than they did back in the day. And unrelated to the game, but this Dreamcast arcade stick I'm playing this on was a thing of absolute beauty. Like, I do not own this at the moment, but trust me, I'm definitely going to be looking to add one of these into my collection sooner rather than later. One thing I absolutely love about retro games is the incredible game over screens. Like, I always remember like when you used to lose in Sega Daytona, it was like game over, yeah, and this one is just a classic as well. Just that classic game over screen and the message, are you man enough to play again? Absolutely classic. And one of the other things I miss of these old school games is the incredible violence. Now, I played Postal once again for the Dreamcast here last year, but this was the actual released version, and this absolutely blew me away. Last year I played it, it was a little bit loose, it felt a little bit sloppy, but now it felt tight, it felt absolutely perfect. I think this is definitely the best way to play Postal if you want to go back and experience this incredibly violent game. If you want to check us out, head to Wave Studios website, buy yourself a copy, but trust me, I remember this being violent, but oh my, it is an absolute massacre. The final game I played from Wave Studios on the Dreamcast this time was this game, Xenocider, and this was a tough game. Like, it was essentially a kind of 3D side-scrolling arcade shooting game. It was super tough. The controls were really strange, but the graphics in this were absolutely incredible. This just reminded me of like the classic Sega arcade games, and to be honest, any game that lets you equip a nuclear weapon as your secondary weapon is a winner in my eyes. There was also some really rare consoles which I had the opportunity to play at OLL 23, such as this, the Wonder Mega. It is essentially a Mega CD and a Mega Drive built into the same unit. This is one of the amazing things about these video games conventions, is getting the chance to play consoles that you're very likely to never be able to play again, and even more likely to even be able to add to your collection. This thing was super duper cool, and I have never played this version of Sonic CD, and it was super fast, it looked super cool, it ran really well. This is just one of those kind of holy grail consoles, the kind of thing you'll never see again. And one of the reasons I just love these games conventions, just to see the things you'll never see again, and to be able to experience some of the games you may never get a chance to play again. But when it came to rare consoles, the market was totally owned by Asobi Tech, who had some of the craziest setups I've ever seen. Yes, that is a Super Famicom television. It is a thing of absolute beauty, and yes, you will probably never see one ever again. And right next to it, you have another amazing Nintendo console television. These things were absolutely beautiful, and it just amazes me why these didn't catch on more, because they're just incredible. But you think that's incredible? Check this out. This Iowa CD player and tape player also plays Mega CD games. That is one of the most 90 things I've ever seen in my entire life. Again, these are the kind of things it would be amazing to just randomly find one day, but trust me, you probably will not. These are incredibly rare, and something that Asobi Tech just has in his collection, and they're just proud to bring to conventions and show people. Like, look at this Dreamcast television. Yes, that is a television with a Dreamcast built in. And if you're wondering where the disc goes, that's right, you open the top of the TV and put a disc in there. Incredible stuff. Official Nintendo Norwich fan club was also there, bringing the best modern and retro Nintendo consoles to the convention, including this absolutely beautiful Pikachu N64 But what wasn't beautiful was the most annoying game of Pokemon Stadium 2 ever, trying to beat the most OP Pikachu of all time. I spent quite a while trying to defeat this Pikachu with various teams to absolutely no luck. Then one of my friends came along straight afterwards and defeated him first time. It just goes to show that Pokemon Stadium 2 was definitely one of the hardest Pokemon games in recent memory. Like I said, they had the best of retro and modern Nintendo, while my friend PS2 Many Games was absolutely smashing his way through Ghouls and Ghosts. My wife and I were playing through the brand new Kirby game. And do you know what? I never knew I needed this game in my life, but it absolutely blew me away and is definitely top of my list as my next Switch game to pick up for the collection. After watching some of my favourite YouTubers battle out in Crazy Taxi earlier in the day, when I saw the Dreamcast set up and this game on it, I knew I had to give it a go. And I know what you're all wondering, and yes, of course I did beat both competitors' highest score in my run on Crazy Taxi, so yes. If anyone out there is looking to challenge for the Crazy Taxi crown, I am here. I am an absolute master at Crazy Taxi, and trust me, if you want to go, you are in for a crazy time. Still one of my favourite arcade games of all time and amazing on the Dreamcast. And for the final time in this video, talking about the Dreamcast, here we have the absolutely incredible Games Re-Up, who are bringing some of the best Atomic Wave games to the Dreamcast. And this, for me, was my favourite game. Not only I've played at this convention, but a favourite game I think I've ever played on the Dreamcast. This is Dolphin Riders, and this was absolutely incredible. If you like the Metal Slug games, if you like classic arcade games, this is an absolute must. And this is a free game to play on the Dreamcast. You can essentially download the hack file of this game and play it on your Dreamcast. But visit their YouTube channel, check out some of the amazing work they're doing. It's just crazy to me, the amount of love and support that the Dreamcast is getting this many years after its inverted commas death. It just seems like the Dreamcast is alive and well in 2023 and quite possibly more loved than ever before. But there is no other group that have more love for a specific console than the Norwich Amiga Club. They absolutely love preserving this absolutely amazing collection of, I'd say, consoles. They're more kind of PCs, and just some of the weird ones like this console here, which I even forget the name of. There was so many amazing consoles, and just the way they preserve these so people can play them, because these are very hard to emulate and very hard to find some of the original software. So it was really good to be able to go back and play some of these absolutely classic Amiga games. It was great to be able to play some of these classic games, such as this game, Battle Squadron. And the thing is, with some of this older hardware, it is wearing out. So this Immortal joystick that I played this game with was absolutely incredible. This is a brand new joystick coming to Kickstarter soon. And trust me, after using this for like 5 minutes playing this game, I knew I needed one of these for my home Amiga. I will leave a link down in the comments below. As I said, these are coming soon to Kickstarter, and trust me, if you're an Amiga gamer, there's no other way to play the game. Now, I will be the first to admit I do not have the greatest knowledge when it comes to the Amiga, but this is what I love about conventions like this and groups like the Norwich Amiga Group, who just help remind people or introduce people to these amazing consoles and PCs. It's so good to be able to go back and experience them, and it's really kind of lit a fire inside myself. I have 1 or 2 Amiga consoles in my collection, but this has kind of driven me to really look into a little bit more, kind of learn the history, find some of the hidden gem games. And this is what I love about the games conventions. It's not just about finding about more what you already know you love, it's about getting a new appreciation for something you never really knew about before. And trust me, this has really lit the fire inside me to look more into the Amiga, because I'm sure there's tons of games, consoles and hidden gems that I am missing. And I'm just thankful for groups like the Norwich Amiga Group for just keeping this alive and preserving it for the future and passing it on to future generations. One of the main things I want to add to this video is just the absolute thanks to John and all of the team who made this weekend possible, undertaking not just a one-day event but an entire weekend of video game events, sales, stalls, just everything that goes into it is no small feat. And I just hope John and all the team understand how much everyone appreciates this. This is normally the kind of thing I have to travel across the country for, and it was great to see so many like friends and fellow YouTubers travel down to Norwich, and it just makes me proud to be from Norwich having this on my doorstep. So there we have it, that was OLL 2023. But it doesn't end there. I'll be back later this week on Saturday Live at 5 with a live game hunting episode, and I'll add all of these videos together in a playlist so you can fully experience the amazing time that was OLL 23. Trust me, you need to be there next year, and I hope this video has shown you how absolutely amazing this convention was, and massive thanks and a massive appreciation to everyone who made this festival possible. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, subscribe, and as always, keep playing the game. See y'all soon.